All right, what's going on, guys? Andrew here from Prodigy Fitness, and today on this episode of Prodigy's Simply Fit podcast, I am joined by Cody Fultz, who's one of our adult members who's been with us for, I'd say, maybe about 4 or 5 months now, maybe 6. I wanted to bring Cody on. Cody's a busy dad. He's got a little one. He's got one on the way. He's a professional, busy professional as well, and so I wanted to bring him on to kind of talk about his fitness journey and how he's kind of figured out how to fit it all in. So, Cody, I appreciate you joining me. If you don't mind, maybe kind of giving a quick synopsis of who you are and then we'll kind of get started from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Name is Cody, and I'm adult-ish. I still have some child tendencies at heart. Yeah. But I'm 35 years old, veteran, currently in tech sales. Beautiful wife, 4-year-old boy, baby girl on the way in about a month and a half. So we'll be rounding out the family and stopping there. I think at that point, I think 2 will be pretty good. Plus as we get closer to 40, I don't know if I can keep up. I think you can maybe help me keep up years down the road with kids, but I think at this point I'm kind of at the latest stage of where I would want to have a child and still be able to run and not be in a wheelchair. So. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. That's a little bit about me and where I'm currently at in my life.
Yeah. So let's talk about your fitness journey. Cause obviously, like I said, you've been with us for about 5 or 6 months, but previously to that, you actually were a coach, right? You spent some time in Hawaii, you coached a little bit. So kind of talk about your fitness journey. I know you were in the military as well. So kind of give a little bit of brief, history on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in Hawaii and was a fitness coach for quite some time. Did that for a couple of years. It was kind of a fun hobby. I was looking for something that my wife and I can do together. Being in the military, I was 5 years active duty, 6 years in the reserves, and I had constantly worked out, was always fit, always active. My wife and I loved hiking and diving and all that other, good outdoor fun and activities. But we wanted to kind of find something that we can be active together on as far as a fitness program. Going to the gym and just kind of lifting weights, even if I tried to guide or coach her through that process, it wasn't a good fit for something we can do together. So we kind of searched around and we found a program that we were really happy with. And I was approached and asked to be a male coach there because we didn't have any males. And so it was fun. I had a good time doing that. And the reason why I bring that up is it definitely ties into what brought me, to Prodigy and my fitness journey in its entirety, right? After we had my son, he was born in Hawaii and we moved back to California about 3 to 4 months after he was born. And I found myself just 2, 3, 4 years went by and I was getting less and less active. And I was getting more and more older. And so I found myself not being satisfied with where I'm kind of feeling I'm deteriorating in my health, right? I felt, first it was, okay, I'm not working out as much. Then it was my diet started to change significantly. I wasn't eating McDonald's every day. But I wasn't really controlling my portions. I wasn't eating my quinoa that I used to always eat. So my diet started to change and then my lifestyle, I felt like totally changed. Right. And where I progressed and was having success in my personal life and my career, I was not feeling successful in where I was at. And I think a lot of it was just because emotionally, I didn't feel good about myself and my body and where I was going. And I saw myself deteriorating year over year. And finally, I said, enough's enough. I don't have any more excuses. I essentially can make my own schedule. And if I can't, I'm going to have to find time. Right. And I think that's the biggest thing for me was I had to look at it because I'd been there before, that I know it's an investment. And if you look at something as being a true investment, that you want to invest the money, the time, the effort into it, then you're going to make it happen. And once you make that decision, you can go at it 100%. So it finally got to a point where I had to do it for myself, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, no, and I think you brought up a couple good points there. And the first one being is that, like, for most of our members, right, and I think just for people in general, right, it's not the idea that they don't want to not be fit, right? It's like just life gets in the way, right? Like as you kind of get older and you get out of college, for example, right? You get a real job, now you got to start paying bills and like all of a sudden, like just life gets in the way. And I would say for a majority of our membership, right, they came to us because they were like, hey, you know what, I'm not making myself a priority, right? Like I'm not investing in my health. I'm not putting me first, which ultimately is affecting, my job and my family, because I'm not the best that I could possibly be for them, and for my job. And so I think that's a good point of, you're not alone, right? And the people hopefully who are listening to this podcast to realize like they're not alone in that too. If they're struggling to make themselves a priority, others are doing it too, right?
Right. And, kind of on that note, what was a deciding factor for me, kind of the final straw was, first and foremost, I want to be healthy for me as well. I also want to be healthy for my children, right? My 4-year-old son is very active. We play baseball together. We're out in the backyard doing soccer and football. And, I think it's important to be a good role model and example for my son and my daughter to be soon. But I can't be a good role model for them if I'm not healthy myself, right? And not necessarily fit, right? This is about being healthy, and being active and being able to engage and partake in my children's activities, right? And so if I can justify sitting on the couch in the evening for 3 hours and watching an A's game, then how can I continue to make the argument that I can't find time to go work out for an hour and be healthy, right? So that's really what I love my sports. Don't get me wrong, but I can record an A's game and watch it at 9:00 at night, right? I'm probably not going to go to the gym at 9:00 at night.
Right.
So that was kind of the final straw for me. Is like, okay, Cody, you don't have any more excuses. You sit there and watch a baseball game for 3 hours. What's important? Prioritizing, and then once you figure out what those priorities are and what is important in life, and we say all the time, right? Like I would die for my children, but one thing, and I know this sounds kind of cheesy, but it did click for me, is like, well, what about living for them, right?
Yeah.
Are you willing to make the adjustments in your life to be, healthy and involved and live for your children? If we're able to and willing to say, well, we would die for our children, well, I would live for mine.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've never heard that. And I think that's super powerful, right? I think that, that idea of it's one, making it a priority, right? But even taking a step back further, kind of figuring out like, what is your why, right? And like your kids are your why. And I think, I've got a 4-year-old as well. And so, yeah, she's very much, my why is why I do what I do. And, but I think having that mindset, right? Because, when people come in, they're like, oh, my goal is to lose weight. Well, that's great. But like, let's take it a step farther back, right? And like figure out like truly, like, why is it that you want to potentially lose weight? Like, why do you want to be fit and healthy? It's not because you want to just be fit and healthy, right? Like you want to be fit and healthy for your kids, to be a better role model for your kids, to be there for your kids, to never have to say no to your kids in terms of like, hey dad, let's go play baseball. Like, no, I can't do it. I don't feel good. Like, no, like I never want to be able to tell my kids that. Right. So, and I think if you can find that why, right. And it be something other than like the kind of end goal of losing weight. It's the weight will come, right. But it's more about like something that's going to kind of tug on your heartstrings a little bit more in terms of like, hey, I just want to be there to like be able to take my kids to the park and do all that other stuff and not feel like I'm going to quote unquote, like let them down. I mean, that's a pretty powerful motivator, right? To be, to be that dad where your kids are like growing up, they're like, oh yeah, my dad was always around playing around with us. Like I was like, oh no, like we played with mom instead. Like his dad was sitting on the couch, whatever it was.
Right. Especially in this day and age with video games, right? I mean, even parents that are my age at 35, right? I mean, a lot of us grew up with video games. A lot of us play video games, and and there's nothing wrong with that. We all have these things that we enjoy that are hobbies and fun, activities for us. But I think it's even more important now to show outdoor and fitness activities to our children. Yeah. And again, if I could sit on the couch and watch a baseball game for 3 hours, it's something I enjoy, but am I necessarily setting the best example for my children if I'm not also doing X, Y, and Z, which for me is to be healthy and fit and to be active and show them the benefits of being active. And everybody has their different whys, right? But I think diving deeper into those whys, like you mentioned, not just about losing weight. We all want to lose weight and feel more confident, and we want to have that summer bod and, put look good in our shorts and not have, I still got a little bit of my, love handles over here I want to get rid of, right? And those are, great reasons to be fit and be active. But I think diving deeper into those whys and figuring out truly what makes you active is what will also keep you consistent. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's easy to say, well, I want to lose weight. And then you go to the gym, you work out for a couple of weeks, and then you kind of fade off a little bit. And, because I think you haven't truly identified what really is important. Why do you want this transformation, or why do you want to change and be more healthy and have that? I mean, it is a lifestyle change, right? We have these buzzwords, I think, that we hear a lot in kind of the fitness environment. But they're there for a reason, right? It is a lifestyle change. You have to make that commitment. And I think truly understanding and diving deeper into your why will help you be more consistent on a weekly basis.
Right. Absolutely. And to that point, I remember reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. But he talks about like habit change and how like a really like powerful thing to make like a habit sticky, for example, is to kind of adopt that identity of like, I'm not just a person who goes to the gym. Like, I am a fit individual. Like, that's my identity, right? For example, or like, I'm not somebody who like I read books, but like I'm an avid learner, right? Like, it's that identity. And I think along the point you just said of like creating that identity of, it's not just, it's not just me working out, but like, this is now my life, part of my lifestyle. This is who I am, is going to be something that's super powerful in terms of, hey, me going to the gym 3 to 4 days a week is just who I am, and nothing's going to get in the way of that. And that's going to help with that consistency, which I think is crucial, right? Like, yeah, you can go to the gym and you can like crush it for, 2 or 3 weeks. But then if you fall off the wagon for 4 months, well, you're probably not really going to make much progress at the end of the year. Whereas if it's like, if this becomes part of who I am and part of my identity, I'm going to be consistent, 3 to 4 days a week for a year. And then I'm going to, look around and go, oh shit, like I made a ton of progress. Like and now that's going to continue to kind of feed into that motivation of wanting to keep going, right? Because you're going to see that success.
Yeah. Especially initially, right? You just mentioned 3 to 4 days. And that was that's my goal for myself, that I think realistic expectations and realistic goals. I'm a busy professional. I have a 4-year-old. I'm married. I play softball on Monday nights. Like, I have, other things that I have going on in life as well. So realistic expectations and realistic goals that are achievable. And, I think, are there benefits to being able to go 5, 6, 7 days a week? Absolutely. But we got to fit it within our life too, right? We're making the priorities, and we're doing it for ourselves, but do it realistically. I think setting a good goal of 3 or 4 days, I think will be good, but being consistent with those 3 or 4 days. If one week you end up making it 5 days, fantastic. But knowing that you have that goal of 3 or 4 days, I think will kind of help hold yourself accountable and making that clear to you, right? That's one thing I told you when I first started, is like, I want a minimum 4 days a week. And that was, I felt, was a realistic, reachable goal that I set for myself. And the consistency piece, especially in the first couple months, that's the hardest hump, right? That's the biggest hurdle. I think once you get into the motion and once you get past that first month or two and you're sore every day and, you're sweating and it's not fun, but you need to do it, and you try to keep your why in the back of your mind on why you're there. When I'm walking down my stairs at my house backwards because I'm so sore, I can't walk down forward, right? And it could be tough in your head mentally to get your ass up and get back, back into the gym, right? But I think once you get through that hurdle of the first month or two, the consistency piece, I think, comes a lot easier, because it starts to then change. You're feeling healthier. You're feeling more energetic. You're starting to see some benefits. Now, weight loss isn't always going to be a benefit initially, right?
Right.
Because we're losing fat, we're building muscle, we're changing, our bodies are changing to our new normal, right? Which is kind of it's one of the buzzwords today. Everybody wants to talk about the new normal, right? But it's changing to that. But I think, if you can maintain the consistency, get over the month or two hurdle, then having that lifestyle change to where it becomes more of that new normal, and it becomes a lot easier. And it's more of repetition at that point. And it becomes more fun, right? Because now you can start challenging yourself on maybe adding a little more weight or pushing a little bit harder, or, hey, I want to set this goal for myself this week or for the next 2 weeks. And so it becomes more of a fun, challenging aspect of it versus oh man, I got to go to the gym and work out, type of mentality.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, very much goes into that mindset of, we've become so, adverse to a couple of things, right? We've become so adverse to discomfort, right? Like, initially working out is going to be uncomfortable, right? You're going to walk in and, your muscles going to burn a little bit. You're going to be sweating. You're going to be breathing hard. Like, it's uncomfortable. And right at the end of the day, like we kind of have this, this, we want to kind of go towards like laziness, right? Like, and that's just human evolution, right? Like, we've evolved to not want to burn or to not burn as many calories as possible, right? From a survival mechanism. So like, we're adverse to discomfort, but you have that mindset of going, hey, like, come, 2 to 3 days a week, 3 to 4, whatever it is, like, it's going to be uncomfortable for these first couple. Let's build that momentum of, hey, I just need to just get to the gym, just get to the gym. And then eventually, like, I'm going to start feeling better, right? I'm going to build that momentum to where I'm, going, hey, like, I'm seeing results. I'm getting stronger. I'm feeling better. Like, hey, my clothes are fitting better, or I have more energy now. Like, I'm like just, blowing through all these tasks at work now, like whatever it may be. That's going to be the motivation to kind of keep going in that consistency, but like getting over that, right? And then I think the second part of that is, similar to the idea that, we're adverse to discomfort, right? Like, I think we're adverse, like to like that monotony of like, we chasing that squirrel, right? So it's like, if I don't see results right away, or like, oh, I want to go do XYZ, and then, I want to go do this, and then I want to go do that, and I want to go do this. Like, no, just kind of like develop your plan, realize that, hey, it might be quote unquote, boring, right? But if you kind of get used to that of, whatever it may be, like, you're going to see the results, and not kind of have that squirrel.
Right. Yeah. It helps too when you have a good community, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think that's one thing that's kind of cool is, being somebody who was, a fitness coach in the past, right? And I'm not, I didn't make a career of it, but I can go to a gym that starts with, a number and ends in an S, and go in and probably figure out a workout for myself and things like that, right? But then I first of all, I feel like I'm just another soul wandering around a gym that I pay a monthly subscription for that I'm probably not going to use. But when you join Prodigy, it's not going to happen right away, right? It takes a few weeks to kind of get, acclimated, and you start talking to more people that you see, whether you come in the mornings or the evenings or whatever. Maybe you find an accountability buddy. I mentioned I play softball on Monday nights now. I did that by association from someone I met at Prodigy. They needed somebody to come play softball, and now, I play in a weekly Monday night league. So I think, it's when you have, and the reason why I bring this up is because I mentioned the fun aspect of it, right? After you get past the grind of the month or two of being sore, et cetera, we've already discussed that. And then you start diving into the challenging yourself aspect, to the community piece of it, right? The barbecues that we have, meeting folks and maybe going out for brunch after a workout on a Saturday morning. Those types of things make it fun and make it a community. And then it just becomes something you look forward to. maybe you still struggle getting in and doing the workout, but it's something you look forward to too, right? Because you're going to deal with the suck with people that you built a relationship with. So it adds to the fun layer. I think is important, right? It's everything that we do. It needs to bring us some sort of pleasure, I think, to even work out, right? And we want to be mentally and physically fit and healthy and all of that. But there's a lot more to a program like yours that offers more than just fitting into a pair of shorts you haven't worn a couple of years. And so that's what I've appreciated, I think, about, joining Prodigy and developing those relationships and having a good time while doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's a huge point of at the end of the day, right? Like, the community aspect is a huge thing, right? Like I would say it's much more likely that somebody needs that a community, needs that accountability, that support when it comes to working out versus not, right? Like it's really rare to find that one person who's like, hey, like leave me alone. I can do this on my own. Like I can go to, we're okay. We can throw the name out, right? I can go to 24-hour fitness. I can throw my headphones on. I can go just plug away for 45 minutes to an hour and be fine with it. Where, I mean, all of our members, like, that's really what they need. And to bring up to that point, like, when the pandemic hit, right, as we're recording this, we're kind of in July now. And so we're, hopefully out of the pandemic is, but when people, that was the big thing with like the fitness industry, like mid pandemic was like, oh, like what's going to happen to all of these gyms, right? And, or people are going to, now that the Peloton is out and like, there's the Mirror and Tonal and all these other different things, like, oh, people are just going to want to work out from home now. And we had so many members and even like new members that we've added who said, I bought a Peloton. I did the YouTube videos. I did whatever. And they're like, like the one thing that I still miss and I still need is that human connection, right? Like it's totally different being coached somebody face to face versus being coached by somebody on YouTube or on a screen on a Peloton bike, right? Like, so I think that that community, people thrive. Like we're social creatures, right? Like we thrive in a community, and so having that place where you're like, hey, I didn't feel like coming today, but I knew that Susie was going to be there. For a lot of our members, I jokingly say, right, initially they come for the fitness, but they stay because they build friends, and they're like, I knew that I didn't feel it, but I knew Susie was going to be there and she'd get on me if I didn't show up. Right. Like, that's a super powerful thing. And I think to your point of, for somebody who's looking to start on their fitness journey, finding a community where, like you said, it may not happen, right when you join a gym, but like finding that community is what's going to keep you going, and keep you consistent.
And people will, in a fun way, push you during your workout too.
Yeah.
I've been motivated and pushed by folks, and I've tried to help and motivate others as well, right? That's a big piece of it. But you're right. I mean, we can have the Pelotons and all that kind of. I mean, how many of us have a P90X CD sitting in a closet somewhere collecting dust, or and I've done it myself too, right? I bought purchased an elliptical and used it for the first couple of weeks, and then it sat in the garage collecting cobwebs, right? It's we try to find ways that, well, we're going to make this fit in our life, and we're going to go buy a $1,000 treadmill or something like that. One, it just collects dust in the long run. For most of us normal people, that I don't have a gym in my home. I don't have space for a gym in my home. So, but I don't know if I would want that anyways, because I lose that community aspect.
Yeah. Right.
And that's part of the fun, right? But, I think for, those that want to, we try to find easy ways to get quick results. And that's why P90X was successful for a little while. That's why people buy a treadmill. That's why people buy an elliptical, because they're like, well, I have it at my house. I'll get on there for 20, 30 minutes a day. And it's a great idea, but I feel like majority of us don't really follow through with that. And it's a little difficult to do that because we're just trying to hold ourselves accountable, solely just us. And we're trying to live our lives, right? So I think, when you make a investment in yourself to join Prodigy Fitness and really invest in our health. And that sense of community, I think that accountability piece is huge, right? And it's difficult to have accountability on your own. At least for me, it is. I can't speak for everybody. But for me, the challenge was, there's been times over the last 4 years I was like, well, I'm going to go for a run, and I'll run for a month. I used to be a runner. I used to run a lot, and I'll do it for, a couple of weeks, and then I slowly faded out from doing it again for whatever reasons, right? I got busy, or I didn't feel like getting up in the morning, or it was drizzling a little bit. So I was like, I got to put a rain jacket on. I'm not going to do it, right? So for me, accountability was hard trying to do it, by myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, right, we're not going to push ourselves into that uncomfortableness, right? So that accountability is that one, right? Like you had brought up earlier, where you've had a couple people, and you've done it too, right? People bust your chops at the gym if they're like, oh, come on, Cody, like I know you can do more than that, or vice versa, right? And so it's like along the lines of like doing a squat with a 50-pound kettlebell, for example, is comfortable, but if I go up to 75, I can physically do it. It's just uncomfortable, right? It's going to burn a little bit more or whatever. Like, I'm going to choose a 50. And like, everyone's like, dude, Cody, like, come on, like, we know you can do it, right? And similar to the running, right? Where it's like, hey, if I go out and run on my own, it's raining a little bit, like I'm not going to go. That's potentially uncomfortable for me. But if I'm meeting a friend, I know that person's going to wait for me, right? And they're probably doing the same thing in their mind, going like, I can't not show up because Susie's going to be there waiting for me, right? Like it's we need that accountability to kind of push us out of that comfortableness, because ultimately that's how we're going to continue to grow, right? Is kind of putting ourselves outside of our comfort zone.
Sure. And if you have that fun competitive spirit as well, it can also kind of help push you too, right? Because I'm not going to let Josh outdo me on the kettlebells.
Yeah, right.
So, but it's in a fun way, right? I mean, that's I've always had kind of that fun competitive nature of, well, they're doing 20 push-ups. I could do 20 push-ups too, right?
Yeah.
And all those little types of things, those are things you don't get at home. Those are things you don't get trying to do these programs on your own. These are things you don't get in, that mirror thing that you mentioned. I saw the commercial on it, but I don't know if I could ever. It just seems kind of weird to me. But anyways, to each their own. But those are the things you're not going to get, right? When you're on that journey solo, it can be tough.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely, I want to be cognizant of your time, and I appreciate you jumping on with me. So let's kind of put a bow on this a little bit. If we could, which I love this conversation, but if we could wrap this up and say like, hey, give me, your top 2 or 3 like pieces of advice, right? Like if you had a friend come over and say, hey, Cody, like I see you've been going to the gym, like, you've been kicking ass, and I want to do that as well. Like, but I don't know what to do to get started. Like what 2 or 3 things would you say to them as like pieces of advice?
The biggest is you can find the time.
Yeah.
Right. I think that first and foremost, you can find the time. I mentioned I would sit there and watch a baseball game. I can find the time. Consistency is key. And then I think the third thing is, and one of the reasons why I think people stop their fitness journey prematurely, is they don't see results that they expected fast enough. I think it's important to convey what your goals are with you. And talk out what goals would you like to meet over the next month, the next 3 months, the next 6 months, and then try to find ways to meet those goals, right? Understand that you're not going to lose 10 pounds in 3 days, that you may not fit into those shorts that you wore 5 years ago, when you were at your thinnest. So those are the biggest things. You can find the time, maintain consistency, and expect realistic, or make realistic goals and expectations for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think those are powerful stuff. And I think that those are definitely good building blocks for somebody as they're getting started. Right. And I think the first one is probably, they're all crucial, but I think the first one of realizing like, hey, I am a busy adult, but I can make time. Right. Like, Cody, you're a busy professional. You got one with the second on the way, right? Like you got a lot going on in your life, and you figure out how to make it work. And even I think the other thing people realize is that kind of like it's like you create a plan, but be flexible with that plan in the sense of like, hey, I planned on going to the gym tonight, something happened, right? Like maybe, my son's softball or baseball practice got moved to tonight and I can't go to the gym now. All right, cool. I'm just going to bust out as many push-ups as I can do today, and it's like, cool. It wasn't what I originally intended, but it's still on plan of me getting a quote unquote workout in, right? Like having that idea of like, I can find the time. It's going to take me, 5 minutes to do push-ups as I can in 5 minutes. Cool. Right. Like I got my heart rate up a little bit. I got sweaty a little bit. Right. And I move on. So it's that idea that you can find the time. And I think, yeah, absolutely. Like you said, consistency is key. And yeah, be patient with your results and realize, yeah, let's set realistic goals of, I'm not going to lose, 30 pounds in a week, right? It's going to take some time. And ultimately that's how you want it to be anyway, right? Like you don't want to lose 30 pounds in a week because that's not going to be the things that are going to stick with you. So
yeah, trust in the process. You will get there. You will get there, and everybody's going to get there in at different times, different stages. But just I become a believer in your process. I think you help guide your clientele in the direction that is what they're in conjunction with their goals, right? And so I think convey the goals to you in a clear manner of what you would like to meet, and then trust the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. So hang on real quick. I'm gonna close this out, but I appreciate your time. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Prodigy's Simply Fit podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Andrew Hamill. I was joined by Cody Fultz today. As always, if you can do us a favor and, like and subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend or family member who you think may benefit from hearing this, it'll be greatly appreciated. All right. Hope you guys are having a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.